Today on episode 72, I'm answering one of the most common requests I get via email to talk about second career teachers. For those of you that are thinking about switching careers or are just starting out as a second career teacher, this episode is for you.
Welcome to the Teachers Need Teachers podcast, where we help new and beginning teachers navigate through those crazy first years of teaching so you can maintain your sanity and personal life. Here's your host, Kim Lapre.
Welcome to the Teachers Need Teachers podcast, a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kim Lapre, and this is the podcast for new and beginning teachers who don't want to just survive those first few years, but actually thrive. I am super excited to have you guys out today. I'm going to be talking specifically to those of you that have switched careers to become a teacher. Or maybe you're about to do that or you're considering it. And, I actually have quite a few of my colleagues that have done this, as well as I've read others' experiences online. So needless to say, I have a lot to share with you on the topic. Today's episode is sponsored by Tailor-Ed. Tailor-Ed is the next generation of differentiated instruction. As teachers, understanding and meeting the varied needs of each and every student in today's classroom is time-consuming, complicated, and overwhelming. Tailor-Ed makes it not only feasible, but effortless. Using Tailor-Ed, you can create differentiated math lessons in just minutes with curated resources at your fingertips, smart student grouping in seconds, and student insights that are beyond just proficiency. Listeners of the podcast can sign up for Tailor-Ed using the promo code TEACHERSNEEDTEACHERS, and that's all one word. And you can receive Tailor-Ed for free for 3 months. So go to Tailor-Ed.com, and that's TAILOR-ED.com, and use the promo code TEACHERSNEEDTEACHERS for your first 3 months for free.
I'm Jennifer Gonzalez from the Cult of Pedagogy podcast, a proud member of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. The opinions expressed are those of the individual hosts. Make sure you check out all the other great podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com. And get ready, because the learning begins in 3, 2, 1...
Now, I've been on several interview panels, and one of my favorite types of people to interview are second career teachers. They come in with such confidence, and they have a more introspective and reflective manner to them. While they'll still be nervous, I can more easily sense how they'll be in a classroom because they're just more authentic. And you'd be surprised by how many teachers came from a previous career. I know I was. Since I started teaching when I was 24, I was kind of naive and just assumed that we all followed the same path to becoming a teacher, and boy, was I wrong. And if you're wondering why people would make the switch, here are some of the reasons that I learned. And if you're someone who already did make the switch, let's see if your reason falls within these. These people switched because they truly had a calling that education is where they belonged. Or they kept hearing that they should become a teacher, so after some hemming and hawing, they finally did it. Does that sound like you? A lot of them, came from educational families, or they just seem to have this natural knack for teaching. Now, some of them, they tried subbing and they realized that they liked it. Or they worked with kids in some capacity and they loved it. So there was already that interaction and experience working with children that really led them to doing it. Now, others, they wanted to have a more positive and fulfilling work environment. A lot of them came from corporate or freelance work, and, they just wanted something more meaningful. They hated and were bored with their office or corporate jobs. I've read about lawyers and some really successful people in private industries or even other government jobs who just felt like it was soul sucking and they just wanted something more meaningful and to make a difference. Now, there were quite a few teachers who wanted a regular 9-to-5 job, and I chuckled a little bit about that, but I know what they mean. You know, maybe they didn't want to work weekends or something, or have it where their day off is kind of variable, like in sales or retail. And quite a few wanted to spend time with their family, and they wanted the same schedule. They had kids, and so being a teacher allowed them to have summers off and winter break off with them and spring break. And then there were a few of them that had like a business before, or maybe they were laid off. And so they, switched from that. So I don't know, does that align with why you're switching or why you did switch? And then I also read and talked with other people about the advantages of being a second teacher. There's actually a lot of good that can come out of this. Okay, so people coming in as a second career teacher, they do have a lot of advantages. The biggest one is that they have more life experience, especially if they have their own children. This means that they also have more self-confidence and resilience, and they can handle situations with a calmer head. Now, younger teachers, they can do well too, but they just tend to be more prone to being overwhelmed and stressed out and have anxiety compared to second career teachers that tend to be older. You also have more credibility with parents because of your age. They're going to automatically assume that you'll have more control of your class and that you've got it together, because being an older teacher to them means that you probably have more experience. You don't actually have to tell them that you're a first year teacher. I would just go with it. Whatever assumptions that they make about you, you don't have to rain on their parade and tell them otherwise. So parents will trust you a little bit more. However, a hard part of this too is that you're going to have to work a little harder to stay current with what your students are into. So you want to make sure, as I've spoken about in many, many podcast episodes, you want episodes that are relevant and relatable to the lives of your students. That's really important in terms of engagement and classroom management. So it's definitely doable, but it's harder if you're an older teacher, unless you have teenagers that are living through that like I do. You also have the advantage of using your experience to just show the big picture to your students in terms of what they're learning. And this is key because, many students see learning in a bubble where they have to do it for the sake of school. They have to school because of school. And since you've gone out and you've worked, quote unquote, real jobs, you can relate what they're doing to what's actually out there. For some reason, if you're this lifelong teacher, they feel like you've never had a real job before. But if you came in as someone who was an engineer, or you worked in the military, or just somewhere else, they're like, oh, you had a real job first. And so it just makes it easier for you to say, yeah, actually, it is important to come to work on time because you'll get fired, right? And then you can equate that to school. And a lot of times students, they don't see the point of what they're learning in class. So you have the advantage there. And you honestly have a worldly view that, I hate to say it, no 20-something can bring to these students. Now, someone from a Facebook group summed it up best. They said, I find that my business experience really helps me in the classroom. Selling ideas is much more fun than selling products, and I think kids appreciate the real-world applications of what I teach them. So if you're kind of on the fence, or if you're unsure that you made the right decision to switch careers, I hope that that's a little bit, reassuring for you. So here's some tips on making the transition and making this more successful. Okay. Now, first, I recommend that you try being a substitute teacher and see if you like it. I mean, you might have these ideas of what it's like to teach, but you want to be there and actually see what it's like when you're standing in front of 35 students looking up at you, waiting for you to say something and ready to pounce on you. Many districts, they don't require a teaching credential to sub. You just have to pass a background check. And it can definitely give you a taste of not only whether you want to teach, but also, and this is helpful, which schools or districts you'd actually want to apply for. And if you're worried about the pay, yeah, I'm sure you've heard that teacher pay is not great. But you have to remember something, okay? Contrary to popular belief by non-teachers, we don't get the summers off, okay? These are not paid vacations. None of our vacations are paid. So in my district, I work and get paid for 185 days. So if you count 106 days for weekends, that means that I am missing out on 74 days of pay. Okay. I'm only getting paid for the days that I work. But you know what? That means that I have 175 days off with all the breaks and weekends. Plus, on top of that, I get sick and personal leave and benefits. So at this time, I personally would never, ever trade that in for anything. And I am consciously taking a hit to my paycheck for all of that time off. That doesn't justify the miserable pay that we get, you guys. I just want to make this clear, but I wanted to put the pay part into perspective, okay? I definitely would make more with this amount of experience if I was in the private sector with only 2 weeks off and weekends. Now, if possible, I recommend that you choose a subject that is more in demand. Social studies teachers, especially if you like history, you're like, oh, this is awesome. I would love to teach this and share my enthusiasm with students. But unfortunately, social studies teachers are a dime a dozen. And also the positions are scarce. It's really hard to find one. Math, science, special ed, and English as a second language or ESL, those are definitely more in demand. So it's going to be easier to find a job. But you also have to keep in mind that you need to teach based on your degree. So that could kind of come into play. Or you could be like me, where I'm not an English teacher. And so I just took a test so that I could get a supplementary credential and teach English. So basically I passed a test saying I know enough about English to teach it. So you could take a look at doing that as well. Now, if you look at teach.org or teachnow.org, you can find out ways to get certified. So they have alternate or alternative certification or just regular certification programs. There's definitely not one straight and narrow path to becoming a teacher. So if you truly want to do this, getting a credential might be easier than you think. However, if you do a more fast-paced program, you're going to end up getting less training. And so there's going to be more that you have to figure out on your own. So I've read about some programs where your training is basically the summer and then you jump right in. And while a lot of teachers have done that and have been successful, I think that you're going to find yourself a lot less overwhelmed by what you have to learn on the job if you go for a more traditional certification. And also, I think it's a really good idea to get some kind of training in educational technology. It will make the learning curve less steep if you come in with knowledge about, like the Google Suite or Microsoft 360, which is what a lot of schools use, one or the other. And having knowledge on some of both is actually a plus because you don't know which one the district uses. And, you already have to deal with things like classroom management. You don't want to also have to worry about the technology part piling on top of that. That's just something else that's going to be frustrating for you. So, for example, if your school is 1-to-1, where every student has a device, you have to manage the students and their devices so that they're not goofing off. And if you have to troubleshoot on top of that and you're not good at technology, then you're just adding to that stress. So there's a lot online in terms of learning how to use those in the classroom. And I would suggest that while you're getting your certification, that you also take some of these classes. Now, I already knew about this part, but I didn't realize just how bad it was if you're a second career teacher. So you want to double check the Social Security situation, especially in your state. Some people, when they switch careers, they've already earned all 40 quarters of their Social Security, and they go into teaching, and now you have to forfeit all of that for your teaching pension. And it's part of the windfall elimination provision. It's a government thing. And, I've actually written to my senators about this because it's really unfair. And they've replied back to me saying, yes, it is unfair. And, sometimes there's buzz about fixing it, but I have yet to see any progress. But that's definitely something that you want to look up for your particular state. You also want to stay up to date on the latest research and initiatives in education. They're always changing. And this is not only important for your teaching, but also for your interview. So important for your interview. You're going to expect to hear a lot of jargon, teaching jargon during your interview. And if they ask you something and you look like a deer in headlights, that's not going to bode very well for you. So definitely, stay up to date with that. There's a lot on the internet in terms of the teaching techniques that people are using in your particular subject area, or if standards are changing, or if there's just a certain way that people are teaching. You want to really be up to date on that. Also, I mentioned this before that you have advantages as a second career teacher. So lean in on your experiences from other careers. These are strengths in your classroom. As much as possible, use the knowledge that you have learned in your first career and apply it to teaching. You probably have a ton of problem-solving skills that are key to your previous job, and your confidence as an older adult also helps in the classroom, since students, they're going to see you as more of an authority figure rather than their peer. They're going to be less likely to try to be your BFF. And there's also a good chance that you experience success from your previous career. Now, switching to teaching will be hard, and it'll be a while before you feel like you're good at it and get the results you want. Be kind to yourself and give yourself a chance to grow. You're just going to feel like a failure for a while, and I hate to say that, but a lot of times it's true because, like I said, you were a superstar before, or you were getting a lot of success and people were recognizing your talents. And now you're going to be thrown to the wolves here, and you're going to be fumbling around wondering, what am I doing here? Why did I do this? Because it's going to take, I want to say, at least 2, 3, 4 years before you feel like you've got it. And you just have to stick with it. And I honestly felt this way when I was trying to start a business that I've told you before, failed fantastically. And so, I was really hard on myself because I didn't get it within the first year. I wasn't making a bunch of money in the first year. And for those of you that work in business, that this is really funny to believe that you could do that, but it's the other way around too. So don't expect that it's going to be, 1 year and you're solid. Just think about how long it took you to be good at your previous career, and, expect the same with teaching. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it because you won't be good right away, but just know to be kind to yourself and have patience. In most other careers, professionals understand the importance of how all jobs in a workplace fit together. The same goes for the people in your school. So you want to make friends with the counselors, the support staff, the office staff, and definitely the custodians. When everyone works together and respects each other, they are more fulfilled and find themselves to be in a more harmonious workplace. I've seen some young teachers who treat custodians as if they're beneath them. And I try to nip that in the bud early on if I can, but it really upsets me. And then these teachers wonder why they had to wait 20 minutes for a custodian to come and clean up vomit in their classrooms. We're all adults here. Nobody wants to feel like they are less than just because of their job. So, coming in, you definitely want to have a sense of humility. While you have life experience, just remember that there's a lot that you don't know and you shouldn't assume. You want to seek advice from more experienced teachers, even if they're younger than you. You benefit in no way by having too much pride. And in the end, your students are going to lose out because of it. The teachers that fail, those second career teachers that fail, it's because they assume that they know everything, that they have it handled. They've seen worse, they've handled worse or tougher situations, and they don't want to listen to their colleagues because, those second year career teachers are older and their colleagues are younger. Don't get caught in that trap. It's really easy to let your ego get in the way. And I'm going to remind you here, you're going to be climbing the ladder again from the bottom, and you're going to have to work your way up. And, if you're genuinely open to suggestions, you're positive, you're proactive, it won't take you long to gain the respect you deserve. But just be aware that some people will assume that you don't need the same kind of graces and second chances as a younger first-year teacher. In fact, some of them will look at you and assume that you're not a first-year teacher because you're older. But, if you just have your mantra be something similar to, I'm still learning, but I got it now, then you'll be fine. So when people are kind of like, why don't you know this? You can remind them, I just started, but still learning here, but I'm a fast learner. Just like with younger teachers, you need to find a mentor who can teach you the ins and outs of the school. So even something as simple as knowing how to call in a sub, or what to bring to a staff meeting, or what paperwork to fill out when you're going to go to a conference, that's really, really important. And it helps if this person is in your department, but even if they're not, they can make your life easier and decrease any embarrassing situations. And especially, I would ask them how they maintain their work-life balance. You've probably heard that most teachers struggle with this. I mean, we can't seem to escape this whole teacher self-care because teachers are burnt out and tired, especially in your first few years. We can't help it though. I mean, we can be really overzealous with our goal to save the world and to save the lives of these children. And we forget about ourselves and our family in the process. And this is especially true if you left your previous career for more time. The irony is that you're actually going to end up wanting to work really hard to be good. And so you're going to spend even more time than you did in your previous career, at least in the beginning. So find out how other people are balancing it in ways that they are not necessarily cutting corners, but finding ways to save time. And finally, be prepared to be tired. Tired like you've never felt before. Teaching is like herding cats. And I'm not even exaggerating. It has been harder and harder for me to stay energized the older I get. It can be like popcorn in your classroom with voices and hands in the air, or maybe if you want to think about whack-a-mole. And at the end of the day, your body will be angry and want to collapse and do nothing. So expect that you're going to be tired in the beginning, and then you're going to start getting used to it. So I hope that I gave you a mix of, the pros of switching careers, as well as advice in terms of how to survive this. I'm not going to paint this as, being completely rosy and that everything that you've seen on TV is going to happen. No, a lot of times TV and movies, they have it wrong. Nobody ever tells you that you're going to be a paper pusher. And you totally are. You have no idea how much paperwork teachers have to fill out. And nobody tells you about the parents that are going to come and email you and they're going to be angry with you, or, administrators that are going to hound you with evaluations. Nobody warns you about that. But despite all of that, I promise it's a fulfilling career and that it's worth it. It's worth the struggle in the beginning. Pretty much everyone I've spoken to and read about online, they have no regrets. They really don't. They just feel like they stepped into their calling, their hearts are filled, and they can't imagine doing anything else. So if you made this decision, I really appreciate you doing that. And, we're in this together. So if you have any questions or if you're struggling with something, you know that you can email me at kim@teachersneedteachers.com. And I always reply to those emails. Although in the beginning of the year, it might take me an extra day or two to get back to you, but I promise I will reply. So I hope this was helpful. If you are switching careers, you have switched careers, or you know someone who has switched careers, please let them know about not only this episode, but also about this podcast. Go ahead and share this podcast with them so that they can benefit from everything that I bring to you every single week. Because I have some awesome stuff in the back catalog, but you guys wait. I have some really good stuff coming up for you in the next few months. So thanks again for hanging out with me today, and I hope you have a fabulous week.
Thanks for listening to the Teachers Need Teachers podcast. Love this episode? Head over to Apple Podcast or Google Play to subscribe, rate, and leave a review.